Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Why Vitamin K2 is Vital for Women's Healthy Aging. I'm Sean Maloney, editor of Nutraceuticals World. This webinar is sponsored by Gnosis by Lisaf. Gnosis by Lisaf harnesses the power of microorganisms and biotransformation processes like fermentation to cultivate nutritional actives, probiotics, and nutritional and functional yeast that benefit human health and well-being. The team draws on its focused research and application capabilities to collaborate with nutraceutical and pharmaceutical brands to develop game-changing products for their customers. Just a couple of quick announcements before we start. If you have questions, I encourage you to submit those using the Ask a Question box on your screen. This session is also being recorded for on-demand viewing and will be made available on our website, nutraceuticalsworld.com. I'm excited to introduce Stacey Smith, who holds a Doctor of Chiropractic license and is also Marketing and Communications Manager for North America with Gnosis by Lisaf. Coupling a clinical background with brand manager marketing experience in high-efficacy nutritional solutions, Dr. Smith continues pursuing her passion for providing lifelong health solutions through her role at Gnosis by Lisaf. As Marketing and Communications Manager for North America, she helps deliver the message on the innovative approach to utilizing biotransformation of microorganisms to improve life sustainably, supporting sales efforts and promoting and educating about the validated benefits of the company's product portfolio. With that, I'm happy to turn things over now to Stacey Smith.
Hello, and thank you for having me here to speak to you today about the vital importance of vitamin K2 science for women's healthy aging. As you can see, vitamin K2 has been growing for several years in the market. This graph from a Nova database shows vitamin K2 has had 30% growth from between 2015 through 2021. I believe K2 sales and product launches started rising as core K2 studies were performed and published. Some of these studies I touch on later in the presentation, including a 2013 study done with MenaQ7 vitamin K2, emphasizing its important role in bone health, and another one in the cardiovascular space in 2015. I also think that the pandemic really helped bring awareness to vitamin supplementation, specifically in the cardiovascular realm, and of course immune health product growth in these last few years. On the right, you see vitamin K2 standalone products and K2 in combination with vitamin D3, calcium, and omega-3s. These can be found in many forms such as capsules, liquid droppers, gummies, functional foods, powders, and protein bars. Consumer awareness on vitamin K2 continues to grow. As we see here, this 2022 survey of 3,500 consumers performed by the Ingredient Transparency Center on Supplementation, vitamin K2 ranked in the top 10 ingredients with 62% of people surveyed reporting their use of vitamin K2. What I found interesting is that it seems that a younger demographic is recognizing the importance of its use. I feel like the knowledge behind the increased awareness may be helpful as companies continue to brainstorm in their product development, so they understand that they have an opportunity to include K2 in their formulations to popularize them as people are more familiar. Another fun fact is that nearly 60% of regular K2 users are actively seeking branded ingredients. That's incredible to know that those who are aware of consuming supplements, especially K2, are really looking for that clinical validation, higher quality, and proven effective ingredients. Of course, bone and heart health were recognized as the top reasons to consume vitamin K2. And according to the survey, K2 saw a sharp increase in use from 2020 to 2022. Many studies we have done explore the impact of K2 on female populations specifically. As many of us are aware, women are more apt to have fractures than men due to poor bone metabolism. Typically, 1 in 2 women are prone to future fractures, whereas for men, the risk is 1 in every 3. Women are also in the category of underdiagnosed cardiovascular disease, again causing us to take a deep dive into clinical research of these two aspects. It's helpful to know that K2 performs its important jobs of promoting bone and heart health by activating 2 special K2-dependent proteins, matrix GLA protein and osteocalcin. I like to talk about matrix GLA protein first because once this protein is activated, it inhibits calcium from being deposited in the vasculature, therefore inhibiting vascular calcification or plaquing. And then it makes sense to me that once we know we're not depositing calcium in a place we don't want it to be, then osteocalcin activation promotes the mineralization of bone by depositing the calcium in the bone, which is where we'd like it to be. So it's safe to say when we have adequate amounts of K2, we simultaneously support bone and heart health by activating two proteins already present in the body. Vitamin K deficiency has been found as one of the most recently recognized vitamin deficiencies. Our studies in healthy populations have shown that children are most deficient in K. They have about 8 to 10 times the amount of inactive osteocalcin compared to adults due to being in the bone building stage of their life. The next most prevalent group are adults over 40 years of age. The deficiency was found at up to 97% in the Western population, and if we could remedy this simple deficiency, we could simultaneously protect heart and bone health. The idea of solving this deficiency is based in science, and this science has been driven exclusively using MenaQ7 as vitamin K2, MK7. Which is MenaQ7. It's the only K2 is MK7 clinically proven to deliver bone and heart support, as well as having its own research with children. You can see that there are 22 plus published human clinical trials that have used MenaQ7 as a source material. And what we'd like to highlight in our presentation in this short time are specifically our studies in healthy postmenopausal women. So first, let's dive a little bit deeper into the research behind K2 and bone health. Here we're highlighting the importance of the idea of peak bone mass. 90% of our peak bone mass is acquired at an early age. For girls, it's around 18, and for boys, around 21 years old. This infers that we should be seeking the nutrients to support our bone mass at an early age. The peak is reached around the age of 30, and that's all the bone mass that we have the potential to have, meaning that it's a gradual drop as we age from there. So the idea is to support bone health at that time, as it's the highest we will achieve in our entire lifetime. As I said, bone loss occurs over time. We are specifically susceptible as postmenopausal women due to the sharp decline of estrogen during this life stage, which leads us to more susceptibility to bone fractures. It's said that 45% of women and up to 25% of men will experience fractures over the age of 50 years old due to this gradual compromised bone loss. In Osteoporosis International, a 3-year human clinical study on healthy postmenopausal women was published, giving us information on how much vitamin K2 is needed to preserve bone mineral density and strength. This study is very impactful as it was the first long-term intervention in history with a low-dose vitamin K of any form showing bone health benefits. It was found that 180 micrograms per day of MK7 supplementation as MenaQ7 against placebo is the dose that gave the most benefits. Here are a few more graphs from the same study showing that MenaQ7 supplementation was sufficient to improve osteocalcin activation, but the biggest difference seen here between placebo and MenaQ7 as far as bone impact strength and compression strength was obtained after that 3 years of intake. Okay, so let's take a look at MenaQ7 as vitamin K2 and what we have done as it pertains to cardiovascular health. Cardiovascular disease has always been considered a man's disease, quote unquote, but 35% of all deaths in women are actually caused by cardiovascular disease. It's interestingly understudied in women, and we have clinically proven that MenaQ7 is the only vitamin K2 as MK7 shown to support cardiovascular health in postmenopausal aged women. This is a 3-year study published in Thrombosis and Hemostasis showing improved arterial flexibility with those supplemented with MenaQ7 versus the placebo group, who actually increased in their arterial stiffness over that 3-year time frame. The reason this is important is because maintaining normal arterial flexibility is a key indicator in cardiovascular risk. Again, the study was done with the 180 microgram per day dose of MenaQ7 The follow-up to this 2015 study was done in 2020 to show that it wasn't just women that experienced the cardiovascular health benefits of MenaQ7 K2 as MK7. In this one-year study, we actually included men as well as women to impress that the sex of the individual doesn't really discriminate between the heart health benefits. In the research world, we see that developing atherosclerosis goes hand in hand with arterial stiffness. We measure arterial stiffness typically through carotid femoral pulse wave velocity, and we see that pulse wave velocity actually increases as we age. So, of course, we performed clinical trials with MenaQ7 K2 supplementation, and as you guessed, arterial stiffening progression seemed to stop and or actually reverse, as seen in the figure on the right side. So also interestingly and unsurprisingly, in both clinical studies that were performed, the placebo group was observed to have a significant increase in their pulse wave velocity. So as we are the innovators in this vitamin K2 field, we're constantly striving to learn more about the health benefits of our ingredients. So we're going to take a look at some of the emerging research on the horizon for vitamin K2 and some of the better together formulations we've found with other ingredients. Many of us are already aware of the beneficial link between vitamin K2 and D3, and we know that the general population should really be getting their vitamin D levels tested at least annually. If they happen to find out that they have a vitamin D deficiency, then they really should be recommended to consume vitamin K2 along with D3. And the reason being is that vitamin D is required to produce the important K-dependent proteins that we spoke about earlier, matrix GLA protein for healthy arteries and osteocalcin for healthy bone mineralization. And the emerging science is revealing that they have been shown to work together in suppressing immune-mediated inflammation and to inhibit oxidative stress. Another combination that you may already be aware of or put two and two together from this presentation is the importance of vitamin K2 along with calcium. We've heard our whole lives, at least I know I did since I was a kid, that getting enough calcium is really important for strong bones and healthy teeth. But as you saw earlier, we need adequate vitamin K2 to ensure that calcium is being deposited in the bone matrix. So optimizing bone complex formulations with calcium should also include vitamin K2. And one other combination that many may not be as familiar with is the connection that we made between vitamin K2 and omega-3. I think everyone knows that omega-3s have been known for their role in cardiovascular support. But the synergistic role of balancing calcium metabolism along with the combined heart health support and K2 bone benefits can really make a great complementary formulation. And also don't forget the early development support for kids with omega-3 and bone matrix development from vitamin K2. I wanted to go back to our better together combination of vitamin K2 with D3 and calcium, just so you have a visual to refer to. This diagram shows you the initial step of D3 increasing the inactive K-dependent proteins, the matrix GLA and osteocalcin proteins, thereby assisting calcium to be deposited into bone to improve density and strength, while concurrently decreasing the deposition of calcium into the arterial vasculature. So really the final concept, of course, is to decrease bone fracture risk as we age, as that can be the final debilitating factor that may lead to the need for nursing home care, and also to decrease soft tissue calcification, which can lead to arterial stiffness and the potential for the end result of atherosclerosis and myocardial infarction. So because of the physiology behind all this, we combined MenaQ7 vitamin K2 with D3 and have clinically proven the cardiovascular health benefits of their synergy. This research indicates that the effects are more effective in combination than with just vitamin D3 alone, and that suboptimal levels or a deficiency of K2 may result in the matrix GLA protein remaining inactive. Again, to reiterate, that's associated with soft tissue calcification. Omega-3 has earned a qualified health claim for reduction in risk of coronary heart disease in the U.S., along with 4 EFSA claims for cardiovascular health. The one missing piece of the puzzle, though, is the impact on the vascular calcification, which makes it a great ingredient to combine with K2, especially since MenaQ7 vitamin K2 as MK7 has its own structure-function claims for bone and heart health. Again, this makes it a winning formulation that could be unsurpassed for cardiovascular formulas that also delivers bone benefits. And those formulas can be particularly beneficial when considering products targeting women's healthy aging. The cardiovascular support from omega-3 with vitamin K2's contributions to maintain and promote arterial flexibility, along with, of course, supporting bone health, are key to overall health and well-being and ensuring quality of life. Still, these are benefits that speak directly to the needs of women. Another important area to touch on is the low vitamin K status commonly found in newborns and the close link to the K status of the mother. Research shows that up to 50% of all newborns are K deficient. This is mainly due to the limited ability of vitamin K to transport across the placenta. And worth mentioning, once the infant is born, there's a low vitamin K content in the breast milk for feedings. This gives us strong evidence that we should be promoting vitamin K to be in prenatal formulations. We have strong clinical data with the use of MenaQ7 vitamin K2 as MK7 in children and adults. And we also can agree that optimization of calcium is important, so the combination of vitamins K2 and D3 for pre- and postnatal supplements could be greatly beneficial. Other pairings to consider for women's healthy aging formulations include MenaQ7 vitamin K2 with calcium, magnesium, and vitamin D3. As previously discussed, D3 helps calcium absorption and synthesizes vitamin K-dependent proteins. K2 is needed to activate those dependent proteins to ensure that they're able to perform their very important functions. And then similarly, magnesium is important for metabolism and activation of vitamin D. All the enzymes that metabolize vitamin D seem to require magnesium, which acts as a cofactor in the enzymatic reactions in the liver and the kidneys. So it's really about combining active, clinically proven ingredients with these synergistic mechanisms of action that ultimately support healthy aging. One last combination, and I promise I'm done with this section, is to consider MenaQ7 vitamin K2 with omega-3 and vitamin D3 for smart, healthy teens. Earlier we discussed that 90% of peak bone mass for girls is around age 18. This is why it's so important to address bone health early in life to bank for our bone density in our later years. We mentioned the cardiovascular benefits of omega-3, but it's also touted for the nervous system support, such as learning and cognition, and even vision health. Along with vitamins K2 and D3 to support optimal bone health during these critical development years, combining these active ingredients are a great better together pairing for young women's health. Now I'd like to give you a few areas of emerging science that we've been looking into for use of vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 has many human, clinically validated benefits that we've already discussed today. But as we evolve, so does the science. A few areas we've touched on are immunity, as vitamin K2 has been looked at for its immune modulating aspects. It's also being looked at in the joint and brain health space. These areas, of course, need to be further researched, but it's definitely worth looking beyond the foundational health benefits that we already have strong science behind. So to focus quickly on the link to brain health, we can closely link arterial stiffness and calcification to an increased risk of dementia and cognitive impairment. We mentioned earlier that insufficient K2 may lead to vascular calcification due to the K-dependent protein activation. So it's safe to say there is more research necessary, but supporting cardiovascular health in the form of MenaQ7 K2 to improve K2 status has potential to decrease the likelihood of cognitive impairment. To summarize for today's webinar, vitamin K2 is supportive for women's health needs over their entire lifespan. Women's health needs shift, and supporting them from beginning with healthy bone development and into middle age as we require more cardiovascular support is vital. Vitamin K2 is one nutrient that stands out as a key contributor for that support. We have the product claim support you can use with your women's health formulations with MenaQ7 vitamin K2 as MK7. At Gnosis by Lissoff, we have invested heavily in clinical research to validate and provide human evidence to confirm quality and efficacy of our MenaQ7 vitamin K2 as MK7. We are continuing the cutting-edge, emergent areas of research and have a plethora of marketing material to support you and your customers. And please just remember, you come to us for the science, and we will provide you a partnership. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate your attention, and please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Stacey, for your presentation. With the time remaining, we're going to field some questions. Please note if we don't get to your question here, we'll be following up with you directly afterward. So Stacey, to start, when we consider K2 for women's health, is this more targeted to seniors, or what ages should consider taking vitamin K2?
Well, since vitamin K2 supports both bone and heart health, it's technically beneficial not just for seniors, but, for the cardiovascular and bone health benefits, but also for pregnant women, growing children, and teenagers for bone development. So it's actually kind of important if you think about reaching our peak bone mass for girls around the age 18 and for boys around the age 20. That we educate the importance of starting to be mindful of your vitamin K2 status earlier in life. But it's kind of unfair that we're asking teenagers to be responsible about their bone health so early, having their future in mind, right? So, but I remember my parents constantly telling me to take my calcium for strong bones when I was a kid. So if we educate and make parents aware, then we can start having those same reminders for them to tell their children to take their vitamin K2 and, of course, vitamin D3 for that matter.
Yeah, sure. What should we expect from Gnosis by Lissoff in terms of clinical research moving forward? Are you continuing to explore bone and cardiovascular benefits? Are there other health areas of interest?
We're constantly striving to further validate the bone and cardio benefits from vitamin K2. But also, since we've made a lot of these better together combinations with vitamin D3 and omega-3, we're really making strides in discovering greater benefits in other spaces. Like I mentioned, the immune space, since vitamin K2 has this immunomodulatory and antioxidant effect. But we're also making an interesting connection in the cognitive space. We're linking that arterial flexibility and, of course, lack thereof to, that leads to cognitive impairment. So eventually, different types of dementia. So we're really excited to continue, doing some research and learning the more diverse capabilities of our vitamin K2.
Yeah, there's certainly interest in the cognitive health space of late.
Yeah.
Are there any safety issues with vitamin K2 or any contraindications that consumers or brands should keep in mind?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and it gets asked a lot. Vitamin K is sometimes known as the clotting vitamin, as it aids in and is, necessary for blood coagulation. This vitamin, however, doesn't really thicken or thin the blood itself, although it can adversely affect blood thinners because it helps your blood to clot. So that would be some of the contraindication is the use of like coumarin and warfarin derivatives as those oral anticoagulants. Those drugs are vitamin K antagonists. So if you're on that type of medication, you should be careful taking vitamin K supplements. Fortunately, we see that there's a new generation of oral anticoagulants becoming available, although not available yet in every country. For example, there's like a direct thrombin and factor 10A inhibitors. So according to what we presently know, these drugs can be combined with vitamin K. But until this new generation of the oral anticoagulants become the standard, we really continue to recommend that, include your warning on products, encouraging people on blood thinners to consult with their medical doctor before adding vitamin K to their regimens.
Okay. Now, currently, there is no RDI, or reference daily intake, for vitamin K in the U.S., correct? Can you make the case that there should be an RDI for K2? And are there efforts underway to lobby for that?
Yeah, unfortunately, no, there isn't an RDI for K2. There is, however, an RDA, the recommended daily allowance for vitamin K in general. So this, of course, was strictly based on the hepatic or liver needs for blood coagulation. So there's several papers done by our legacy company, Neto Pharma, and they were the originators of our MenaQ7. And we've been expressing the importance and need as the leaders in the K2 research space to create a specific RDI for K2. So it's really our ongoing commitment to help keep vitamin K2 in the spotlight and, possibly placed in multivitamins, if not already, hopefully bring better awareness to the prevalence of this deficiency. I talk to patients sometimes about it like in a similar way, maybe a little less severe, but think about it like a folic acid or folate deficiency, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So all that, I imagine that the recommended dose depends on age, life stage, sex. That said, what is the recommended dosage of vitamin K2 for women throughout their life?
Yeah, so our research has confirmed the recommended effective daily dose for adults is 180 micrograms. So same for women and men as at the adult stage. We've discovered it's safe. There really doesn't seem to be, like a toxic level like you would with other vitamins like A and E. But the benefits seem to level off kind of. So the 180 micrograms is the dose that we recommend for adults.
Okay. Just pause for a second and quickly remind the audience that if you do have questions, you can send them in. And if we don't get to them here, Stacey and her team can follow up with you directly afterward. So let's talk about kids a little bit. Is K2 safe for children, Stacey? And what would the recommended dosage be for younger age groups?
Yeah, so we actually did specific research with children. And of course, in order to be able to do that and prove the safety, we had to prove that prior to performing these human clinicals with children, as we're in the business, of course, of do no harm, right? So yeah, it is not only safe, but as we discussed, it's, feels responsible to provide a proper amount of vitamin K2 for that, very important bone development stage. So we found that the specific dosage for children was 45 to 50 micrograms.
Okay. Now, if we could just take a little step sort of back, broad view, you mentioned that women are historically underrepresented in research and their health needs are understudied. Could you talk and dwell on that a little bit about the need for more clinical research among female populations and their specific health needs?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the aging population, we tend to think women live longer, and we're starting to see more cardiovascular issues and maybe almost even the bone density issues are leveling off in men and the cardiovascular are increasing in women. So, we have performed and dedicated some of our clinical research to women, but we really in particular, our research is for population health needs. So we're focused on, helping everyone in the population, male and female, but we have specifically worked on human clinical research with women previously, and we'll continue to do so in the future.
Yeah, great. Now, do you have advice that you'd offer for formulators looking to create some of these targeted combination products that might include vitamin K along with some other complementary ingredients like calcium, vitamin D, omega-3s?
Yeah, so we have those better together formulations that we've, purposely done research with companies and our own ingredients. I myself am not a formulator, but we do have experts for formulating, and we have a very diverse portfolio of powders, oils, and this new matrix technology that makes it easier to combine with minerals and for stability. So yes, we do have that option. I'm not the person to go to for that, but we can direct you to somebody for that.
Fair enough, sure. sort of getting back to the RDIs, somebody asked about if there's a tolerable upper level intake level established for K2.
We've used higher doses in studies in patient populations, but under very strict parameters, and of course under medical supervision in the research setting. So really, we don't recommend higher than 180 micrograms as per the research. If we do go higher, it's typically in patient populations with intense calcification as a symptom, or even like chronic kidney disease. So definitely, I would say stick with the 180 micrograms unless you're under very strict medical supervision.
Okay, great. Certainly a lot more to discuss, but I think that's a good place to wrap up for today. Thank you, Stacey Smith, very much for all your insights. Thank you to Gnosis by Lasaf, and thank you to the audience for attending today. This webcast will be archived on our website, nutraceuticalsworld.com, for on-demand viewing. For Nutraceuticals World, I'm Sean Maloney. Thanks for listening and have a great day.